Welcome to the Delta Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Coale. This is the show where we dive into the relationship between leadership and change, what it means for individuals, teams, and organizations looking to thrive. Today's a great day to be coachable, so let's jump in. Dawufi, my friend, here we are. Welcome into the pod. It's great to see you.
It's always a pleasure, Coach Coale. How are you?
Yeah, life is good. Life is good. I'm doing well. Greetings from North Carolina. Where are you these days?
I'm in Chicago, where I was born and raised, and I consider it one of the cities I'm able to function in.
I love that. So I got a confession. I've never been to Chicago. You would recommend it? Why is that? I don't have a good answer.
Yeah.
For that, but it's on the list. From your perspective, what's your favorite thing to do in your hometown?
You know, the interesting thing about Chicago to me has always been the sort of scale that it has, while still being like effectively a Midwest town. So it's just like Midwest stuff, but like all of it, right? So you go out to eat, you have beers with your boys at the bar. I sit at home a lot, but I have space in a car in a garage. It's something that's difficult to acquire in other places. So for someone like me who really enjoys like variety and diversity and the energy of a big city without the pressures and stressors as much, that's where I think Chicago shines.
Okay, sold. Well, next when it moves up the list and I make it there, I will hit you up.
Let me know.
I would love that. Okay. I'm excited about this conversation. So I want to share just a little bit about what I think is remarkable about you. And then we're going to talk about the 3 questions to launch this conversation. How does that sound?
It sounds beautiful.
Okay. So I think of you as a Renaissance person. I don't know if this is a term. I don't know if this is a term that other people have used to describe you, but I see you as somebody who's interested in a lot of different things. You've got a couple of podcasts going on. That's one of the early connections that we had. I was a guest, I'm proud to say, on Vibe Check. And you helped me launch this podcasting thing that I get to do now with the Delta. You're 9 to 5, you're day to day. You're at Opacity. I think unofficially you're Vibe Architect.
Nice.
More officially, I think it's head of growth. And so you're steering initiatives there around growth. But I want to share on a personal level, the first interaction that you and I had, gosh, I don't know how many months or maybe years ago at this point it was, we connected around Montessori education.
That is correct. Yeah, was that a flyer you took on Farcaster, I believe?
It was not my first, not my last. One of my favorite things about this social media ecosystem is, in my experience, if you have a genuine question, you're going to get met with genuine thoughts. And so this was a great example of the ecosystem. And one of the things that I think makes you so special is your thoughtfulness. I put into the cloud this question about Montessori education. One of the organizations that I get to support is asking questions about this form of education. And I have my thoughts as a previous educator, but I haven't been through. And my daughter at the time was going through a Montessori school. I didn't experience it as a student. And you and I linked up and you shared your experience there, which is just, what I love about Maria Montessori is it's about following the kid. That the kid has passions and interests, and we just need to get the hell out of the way as adults. And so, I don't know, I see you as somebody for whom Montessori education has worked.
I appreciate that. I ascribe all my own success to myself, obviously, but I think as an aside, I think the funniest time I ever had another Montessori interaction since, not being in school anymore. There's a blogger, Scott Alexander, and he sort of talks about a lot of different sort of very heady topics. And I randomly signed on to one of their sort of meetups. Someone was giving a talk. It was in like a gather town, or it was very online friendly. And it said, okay, afterwards, everyone just split off into groups and talk about it if you want to, or leave whatever you want to. And we sat around talking to 5 random people, and we realized 4 of us had gone to Montessori schools. It's like, okay, there's a type. There's a type. There is definitely a type that likes, sort of weird out there things, or or at least you get used to the idea of being a little different by going to a Montessori school.
And following things that you're interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Clearly, everyone was passionate about the topic, at least from an inquisitive nature standpoint.
What initially drew me to crypto was I was watching some of the smartest folks that I know. They were not choosing the direction of like the conventional, traditional direction of like great university school, and they were going more in the direction of like the thing that I'm interested in. And so I think there's a lot of power in that, but we're not. Well, I don't know what you would like to talk about. I do want to ask the question. On the Delta, we do it a little bit differently. I'm going to ask you 3 questions to kick off the conversation. I don't know what you're bringing in, so I'm excited to hear. So what would you like to talk about with the time that we got today?
It's serendipitous, to say the least. We've been trying to get this on the calendar for a while. But currently in my head, I don't know, there's a lot of things floating around, as there always are. But I'm thinking a lot these days after ETH Denver and starting to build out my own team now. Actually, what we we're just talking about. There's so many kids that I've been talking to who are fresh out of school, and even other folks from Farcast who are looking to either pivot their career or something like that, with such a profound, I don't want to call it misunderstanding, but perhaps there hasn't been a lot of opportunity in people's lives to think about what they really want to do, what sort of sets their soul on fire. And that's been on Farcaster, that's been with these students in the hackathon, that's been with some just like personal friends in my life. And it strikes me that it's such a disservice to yourself to not spend time thinking about it. And to honestly those around you as well, because you end up hopping into roles, friendships, relationships, romantic or otherwise, that aren't serving you. And equally as importantly, anyone around you, when you start sort of being haphazard about these things. It strikes me that some of the highest leverage stuff you can do is have a clear understanding of what you're looking for. And, the acceptance that you might be wrong and frequently will be, but at least going in with some sort of first principles thinking about what's exciting to you and what would you like to spend our all admittedly limited time, unless Brian Johnson has his way, limited time
limited for now.
Limited for now. To be fair, I mean, what an incredible example of someone who's clearly knows exactly what he wants to do with his time. I don't agree with everything he does, but you look at that guy and there's no question in your mind that he's doing what he wants to do.
No, it seems authentic.
Absolutely. And I think in this world where, we're getting blasted with campaigns and advertisements and just being perpetually online, having some sort of self-centeredness of knowing what's beneficial to you and what you'd like to explore is a wildly high leverage activity across all aspects of life. So I think that's one really interesting thing. I'm always thinking about brand and status games and how to get people on board, and I think in that connection there, it's really the ability to say no to a lot of stuff, which I think we've talked about before, to make space in your life for the things that really deserve like hardcore yeses. So I don't know. That's where my head's at today. It's what's going on in my life. I'm sure whatever, I could choose anything, and it'd be fun to talk to you about it though. So I feel like I don't have to come in. I don't have to come in too hot with any. How would I put it? Any sort of well-prescribed topics. This is going to be fun regardless.
I feel similarly. Let me play this back to you, Dawufi, just to make sure that I got it. So I like how you put that self-centeredness, having that being grounded in what lights your soul on fire. I think that's how you said it.
Yeah.
And that necessarily requires, that scope has to include what you're saying yes to. It also absolutely must include what you're saying no to.
Correct. Yeah, it's a deep requirement. Part of it's, depending on your own perspective. Like you have an economics perspective, it'll be limited resources, right? If you have sort of a, Buddhist perspective, then it's sort of, we've only got a certain number of lifetimes or things to do this time around, right? There's a lot of different ways to approach this idea. I look at cults really frequently, and I got actually an argument with someone on Farcaster about this, and someone said like it's easy to join a cult. I was like, no, by definition, it needs to be very hard to join a cult and actually easy to leave. That's what makes an effective cult. Obviously,
easy to join, hard to leave.
No. Hard to join, easy to leave. Right. So
hard to join, easy to leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Practically, that's how it should. Mentally, it forms the
The
Antithesis,
opposite.
which is where people get confused, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You look at a call, you say you could just leave, but like mentally it's very hard to do. But physically, it's actually usually quite easy to do. You just walk off the reservation, right? Like these guys don't have, AR-15s and like nuclear weapons like that are usually like, that's not where the barrier is. So very frequently, the physical and practical limitations are the inverse actually of the mental, right? And it's like, well, anyone could join a cult. I'm like, yeah, anyone could, but whether you think religion is a cult or not, following the precepts and dedicating your life and very often excommunicating people that you've been before, these are extremely difficult things to do, and that's what makes those power balances powerful. So I know maybe a bit of a non sequitur there, but regardless, I think this idea of saying no to things, both on the positive and negative side, is an extremely powerful idea.
Okay, this is great. So why should, of all the things that we could talk about now, why should we talk about this now?
I don't know. I'm kind of interested. It's just like I've got a lot of thoughts. I'm hoping it'll be interesting for other people. I'm always worried about the audience. You know me. Worried's a strong word. I'm always cognizant of the audience, right? I think I've got some possibly hot takes, hopefully informative and helpful takes. Definitely, personal takes that I'd love to hear your response to. I think that's one reason, but I do also think just sort of like broadly in the world, I keep running into this. I keep running into people in all facets of life, me obviously being one of them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so passionate about it, where this is just such an important part of life, of everything that you do. I think it's just absolutely quintessential, whether you're a founder or a worker at McDonald's or whatever it may be. What are you saying yes and no to today that's going to set you up for something that you are enjoying and happy with tomorrow?
Okay, so we're going to explore this topic of what you're saying yes and no to, the self-centered way of being in the world. What does success look like in this conversation? And I don't know, this is an interesting question. When I ask it, it always, people are like, but I want to put it out there. What would you like? Because I think a good conversation, we arrive somewhere different by the end.
I agree 100%.
Okay, so if that's the case, what should we aim for with the time that you and I got?
I love it. I love when you ask a nice, difficult question. If anyone comes on the pod and gets cranky that Coach Coale's putting your feet to the fire, that's on you, not on Mr. Coale.
Appreciate that.
That aside, where should we end up? I'd love to end up with some great content. I'd love to end up, even if our mental models don't change, I think going from point A to point B where other people have something to digest is an extremely useful activity. So I'd love to end up with something that people find interesting, engaging, and maybe even if it doesn't change our perspectives, it can change someone else's. And I think that would be my sort of North Star for success here. I think there's other stuff. I'd love to have some fun. I'd love to laugh. I think we're going to get to all that for sure. But more than anything else, I think, Coach, where you and I have always, we see eye to eye a lot of stuff, but where we really sort of lock in together is that we are trying to be helpful to other people. So yeah. I would be, let's say no to something. I'd be wildly disappointed if everyone listens to this and no one thinks it's helpful.
Okay. Done. All right. So we got the direction now. I have questions on my mind, but I want to kick it back to you to see if there's a specific place you would like to begin this exploration part of the conversation.
I'd love to begin with your questions and kick it right back to you.
Yeah. Tell me because I think how we think about words is interesting. How we use words is interesting. You strike me as somebody that chooses words thoughtfully. So when you talk about self-centeredness, why, what do you mean by that? And what historically has this word meant in your life?
Yeah. It's interesting you picked up on this. Sometimes when I talk to people, I don't even realize exactly what I'm putting out there. And this is the thing you've picked up on, but it is a really interesting question. And you're right. I do tend to be extremely thoughtful about words. I get very frustrated when people misinterpret them. So I found it beneficial to myself to really, really think it through. I have a tendency to fly off the handle a bit. But self-centeredness to me, I think, has a couple of things. One, there's just this really interesting word of centered right there, which we, whether it be like a yogic sort of practice or some sort of other energetic meditation, it's just like a very positive word, right? And then you have self, which I think people should think about very regularly. It's the only thing we're really in control of. So from just like a healthy mentality standpoint, thinking about the self is extremely beneficial. But then some reason you put them together, and then it sort of attracts this negative connotation. And I don't know, maybe it's the Montessori school, maybe it's something else. But I sort of have this opinion that like most of what we do is self-centered. We can either choose to acknowledge it or not. People are like, what about charity? I was like, I feel great when I give to charity. If I felt terrible giving to charity, I wouldn't do it. So I think it's sort of disingenuous to say that like, oh, people are, always like only self-interested and that's a bad thing. I think humans are sort of relatively speaking good. You look at, obviously there's examples of that not being true,
Yeah.
but history and the arc is relatively kind to humans as we progress, and this idea of being self-centered, I think is one of those nice things that you can sort of flip on its head the notion and take it from sort of a selfish, I'm willing to cut other people down notion to like I enjoy bringing everyone up, and getting to that sort of headspace is a really powerful thing. Again, both within yourself and then without. I don't think there's anyone in the world who's seen great success at whatever measurement that they're taking on without the deep understanding that they are some sort of force for good in the world as they see it, at least.
Yeah. So tell me more about your relationship with this term. I'm curious if there are any examples that come to mind where you felt like this was an example of me being self-centered. I'm hearing you like challenge the conventional definition of this word, which I really appreciate, but being centered around what matters most to me is kind of how I'm reading it. So I'm curious, like, how does this show up in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's get just very tactical and practical for a second. I am currently hiring for, sort of marketing-ish type role, and I'm lucky enough to have like a bit of a following on Farcast. I had a number of people sort of reach out to me and say like, hey, I'm interested. And the gut reaction, especially the way I was raised, is like, just be like kind to people, right? And then from that downstream, you get to weird places if you're sort of don't have a deep understanding of what kind is, right? And taking interviews and listening to resumes or reading resumes or whatever it may be, it may feel good at first, right? Like everyone's getting along, but ultimately it's actually a very unkind thing to waste someone's time if you think it's not a good fit, or if they're not right because they are showing something to you that says they're not a strong worker or not an effective person. The more difficult but actual kind thing to do is to be self-centered in that situation and say, this is not working for me. Like this is not going to be a good fit. I can tell you right now. And if you want to know why, I'm happy to be transparent, because I'm not coming from a place of malice, right? And hopefully that gets across. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, right? But being very self-centered in that respect, that say my time is extremely valuable, and I don't feel confident that this conversation is going to be a good use of my time. And for that reason, I don't think it's going to be a good use of your time either. And if you want to know why, I'm happy to tell you. And maybe it's something you want to maybe it's something we just disagree on, and that's fine too. But at least we have honest communication and understanding that's not coming from a place of negativity. It's like, I have things in my life that I want to get done. And if you can come along with that, I would love to have you join me. But if I don't think so, I'll tell you exactly why. And this is, again, I think sort of flipping how many people feel about this, because on the one hand, when you're in the seat that I'm in, it can be very uncomfortable. But I've been on the other side as well. And it's actually wildly refreshing to have someone tell you, this is not good. I'll tell you what would make it better in my eyes, and you can choose to do with that what you want. And it's really refreshing. And I think people appreciate it, but it can be difficult to do.
Yes. Yeah. Uncommon though. Like people just aren't direct in the way that you're describing.
It's uncomfortable. And I think it takes tact too, right? It takes skill. It takes, I have sort of an autistic sense of empathy, if you will. At least that's what I've been told by many people who know me well. It's definitely not for everyone. But again, I think that's okay. The people that it's not for, who are going to assume that I'm a jerk or assume that I have some hidden ulterior motive when I don't. Again, those people aren't for me anyways. So, obviously I'm a bit of a meme lord online. I don't mind being perhaps incendiary at moments if we're having a laugh. I hope that everyone can take it
Yeah.
with a grain of salt. And I think most people who've had a direct conversation with me know that there's theater, right? And then
Yeah.
there's backstage. And I think what I'm talking about is a little bit more backstage and internal when we talk about self-centeredness.
Mm. I love this call out. In my work with individuals and teams, one of the promising practices I think are when individuals, leaders are direct and respectful. Like
It's
if
not
I'm
easy.
no, it's not. Hell no, it's not easy, but it can be incredibly powerful, especially if it's coming from a place of this good self-centeredness, where I know what matters most to me, and I'm going to stand on that. And then, and I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm just going to say, hey, I don't think this is a good fit.
Yeah.
And I care enough about this relationship or this dynamic to tell you
Yeah.
that. Because I think I can think of an awful lot of situations where people have not chosen that direction. And it may be more comfortable in the short term, near term. It creates more pain downstream.
It absolutely does. And I think part of that is, sort of an understanding about how you want to be treated yourself as well, right?
Mm.
And that comes back to the self-centeredness again. And I'm harping on it just because I feel like it can be useful to do so when introducing, concepts that are maybe new, unfamiliar, or sort of anti-zeitgeist, whatever it may be, right? But it really does, for me at least, boil down to, God, I wish some people had been more honest with me early on. I would have been able to avoid a lot of mistakes if people had told me, Dawufi, why are you in finance? This is a terrible. Clearly don't like any of these people. They're not bad people, but you clearly don't like them. You don't have any of the same interests. You don't want to do any of the same things that they do. You're harming your body every weekend going out and like trying to keep
Mm.
up with these people. And if any one of my close friends had told me, now, granted, we're all young. I don't hold this against them, obviously. But if there had been someone in my life who had been like, you should really take a second look at what you're up to right now because it's written all over your face. You're miserable. I think I would have been a lot better off. I mean, it's hard to say better off, right? I learned some great lessons, and I am where I am today because of some of those lessons that I learned, in difficult times by myself. But at the same time, I don't wish difficulty upon anybody. I just accept that it is a facet of life.
Yeah. Well, especially when growth and development is involved, nurturing often comes with some discomfort.
I think almost by definition, which I struggle with because I'm trying to invite ease into my life, and I don't think things should be difficult. But I've sort of settled on the idea that like the purpose of the work is to make things easy. So when it's easy, live it up and understand that it won't always be so.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier you wanted to throw some things out there. I have, as we're talking through this, a thought is coming up for me, but I don't want to take us charging in that direction. Is there anything based on the conversation so far that that's coming up for you that you would like to dig into a bit more?
I'm really enjoying being a guest and not having to do that. So charge away, bro. This is great for me to just sit here and wax poetics. My favorite thing to do.
So let me test out something then. Is I want to get your take on it. In my work with individuals, one of the things that I help individuals and teams do is optimize. This is a word that is it has no doubt become a buzzword. Optimization. What does it mean? So I have a pretty simple and straightforward definition of optimization, and it's this: it is alignment between values and behaviors. So simple, straightforward, very difficult to do in practice. What I've found. So what is it? What does it look like? Values, clarifying what matters most to you. Behaviors, identifying what that looks like in practice. So I could say family is the most important thing to me. Now, maybe I defined that a little bit differently than somebody else who says the same thing. So I got to get really clear on what exactly that means. Once I do that, then I can identify the key behaviors that demonstrate that I'm living out that value. Now, the third piece of this is building in accountability to reflect back to me whether or not I am achieving alignment there. But I would argue my best days and what I see with my clients and the teams that I get to support, the best days tend to be ones where there is zero daylight between what matters most and what it looks like. There is clear alignment between the values and the behavior. And so this is something that I picked up this accountability piece from my mentor, Marshall Goldsmith, who's arguably the best executive coach living on the planet. You ask daily questions. You ask a set of questions that are based on these behaviors, which are based on values. They're binary questions. Did I do this today? Yes or no? And every time you do it, you get a 1. Every time you don't do it, you get a 0. And then you add this up over time. And then you get your, what I'm calling an optimization score. So I'll give you an example of what this looks like in my life. Let's say, go back to the family example. Family is most important to me. So that's, if family is the self-centered value, then what is the behavior? Well, for me, it's being present with my daughter. But is that binary enough? Is that like, could a third party adjudicate that and determine whether or not I did it? I don't know. So I got to make it even more specific. So did I spend 30 minutes with her without my phone? And so I get to the end of the day and I ask myself this question. And what I've found with individuals and teams is it's a pretty sobering experience to go through, because it forces you to see how centered or not centered things are in your life. I may say family is the most important thing, but then I'm working every weekend, not spending any time with my family, and I've got to confront that.
Yeah, I love this.
So I'm curious. I want to get your thoughts on this, because this is the folks that know about this are pretty much only the folks that I have the privilege of working with at this point. And so you're hearing about it for the first time. I'd love to hear what thoughts are coming up for you.
A ton. I think this is like wildly broadly applicable. I think about what we do at Opacity and keeping like North Stars and like actionable items. And this aligns all very closely with my sort of like professional philosophy. It is expanding my mind a bit, how it's like more broadly applicable as well. I think people tell on themselves in like crypto marketing a lot when they say, we want users, and then they are optimizing for Twitter followers, right? It's like, there's not 500,000 people using crypto. Why do you care if you have 1 million people followers? Okay. Like, what are we talking about right now?
What is really the value there at play?
Yeah, exactly. And
is it attention?
I think people tell on themselves that they're actually looking to dump on retail and make some money, which again, I'm fairly capitalist. It's a running joke that I'm the personality hire and the capitalist on the team. All right. So this is, I think people get to follow their own incentives. This isn't a knock on them specifically. I do think it's a little disingenuous to claim that you are, some sort of brand manager and your brand is terrible because you're optimizing for things that are clearly not aligned with your values. I think this rears its head a lot. I think to tie it back to what we were talking about before and the example with spending 30 minutes with your daughter, it's really closely connected because when you say like, was I present with my daughter? Like it's hard to say what you should have done otherwise, right? Like it's very hard to take the counterfactual. Whereas if you say, did I spend 30 minutes with her without my phone? Okay, now we're very clear. Did I spend 30 minutes with her, but I had my phone? I should have put my phone down, right? Or like, did I not even spend 30 minutes with her? What did I do during my day for 30 minutes that was so important that I couldn't have spent it with my daughter?
Yeah,
right? Like
it's a yes or no. Why can't I say yes?
Exactly. So then we come back to like, what should I have said no to today? There's a million things. Like you have the data or the actions or whatever it may be, right? That you should have said no to, because at the end of the day, you didn't get to where you wanted to be because you didn't say no to something. So I think it lines up very well with what I'm thinking. It's an interesting way to think about optimization, because I think optimization again it's sort of the inverse of self-centeredness in terms of emotional content, right? Like people are very bullish on optimization, but maybe they should be more negative on it in the way that it's classically thought about, right? Because you can so quickly, how do I put this? Optimization, I think the way it sits in most people's heads is all action, no value, I would say, right? But you're missing such a key point, unless you define it the way you've defined it, that it's like, yeah, I could optimize to the ends of the earth, but if I'm headed the wrong way, who cares, right? It's like trying to build the fastest car you possibly can to head east, only to find out you've been driving reverse the entire time and you're flying in the wrong direction. You are crushing it and doing the wrong thing. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
I think this is, Dawufi, I love this. Most folks think of optimization as more action or all action, less values.
Yeah.
And so how does this look in my practice as a coach? I'll do this work. This is the hardest thing that I do with my clients, by the way, because they've done experiments around this daily question stuff where most folks can't make it 2 weeks asking these questions of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Because
doesn't surprise
it's
me.
so uncomfortable. And so
It's
what I
really,
do as a coach is I'll go through this process with individuals and I'll ping them at the end of the day to ask them if they did these things. And here's the crazy thing. So we've gone through the values clarification. We talk about key behaviors, come up with daily questions, and then every 2 weeks or every week when I meet with a client, I will just share a spreadsheet of how you did on the things that you said mattered most to you. And I don't need to say anything else. They see the number and they're like, oh shit, I'm at 63% on this thing that I said 2 weeks ago was non-negotiable.
yeah.
But what I'm learning in this conversation, what I love about what you added is when there is a space between where I am and where I think I can be or where I believe I can be, the question that I ought to ask myself is, what am I not saying no to?
Yeah, because same 24 hours in the day, like whatever you want to call it, right? Or like I've gotten obsessed with this idea recently about like people who are like really good at napping, right? Like
Okay.
there's all these incredibly high performers who are like wildly good at napping. Like, and it's all like Einstein, famous napper, the MMA like legend Khabib Nurmagomedov, it literally naps like 3-4 times a day or something like that.
Wow.
But it's all with, again, it's because their values are so crazy aligned. It's like, why would I possibly do anything else? And these guys are like true North Star people, right? It's like he wants to be the world champion. Anything else is not adding to his life. I don't think everyone needs to be so dogmatic or so singular in their focus, but it does raise the question of like, oh, I wanted to do that today, and it's like maybe Temptation Island wasn't that important, right? Like, but maybe it was. Maybe that's your quality time with your wife or something like that, and then that is the most important thing. This doesn't have anything to do with the action, which is why I really like your idea of optimization. The action is downstream, not upstream of everything else. So when you think about the qualitative and quantitative nature of analyzing these things, it's like it only matters if you have a good understanding of what the value is. Everything else doesn't matter at all, because you could build the fastest car in the world. If you're trying to get to the moon, it doesn't matter, right? And like vice versa. These are engineering feats, right? But what's your values? What are you trying to get done? What's important to you? It's all very highly connected. We're talking about the same thing here for sure.
I love the example that you just gave of the show too.
Yeah.
Because let's imagine it's sleep. I've set a goal to sleep better this week. But then I'm staying up because I'm doom scrolling on something is different than I'm staying up because I'm choosing to, because the conversation I'm having right now is so damn interesting.
Absolutely. Or like, I'm a big TikTok guy, but I want to make opacity big on TikTok. Now, I'm probably overshooting a little bit. If you were to send me through a coaching system, I'm overshooting a little bit for sure. I can be honest with myself, but it's not like I'm spending my time doing things, or at least I'm really trying not to spend my time doing things that are not aligned with my value set.
Yeah.
But it could be anything, right? If you want to be a famous actor, you should probably be watching movies all day long. That's not brain rot to you, right? Me, on the other hand, if I spent all day watching movies, I'm never going to get to where I want to go. Sounds fun, but I've got other stuff that's more important in my life than watching all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah. It's not for me.
I know you spend a good portion of your day thinking about what does this team need to perform at its best, or how can we take the team that we got now and the organization that we got now and get to where we want to go. I'm curious if there's any connection for you in what we've been talking about and how you think about in your own work helping teams optimize.
Yeah, for sure. Had a bit of a tongue-in-cheek tweet in Farcaster cast the other day where I said shout outs to all the business development legends with no users or with no revenue, and all the marketing gurus with no users who still have the confidence to share your hot takes. You're the real legends, right? It's like you got to be really aware of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And on the sales side, for me, it's very clear. It's money in the door, and that's not to say that I will, screw someone over to win a deal. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the idea that if I give someone something and they give me $1 for it, and they're willing to do that continuously, it's because they're getting more than $1 in their self-centeredness and their things on their side. That makes this a beneficial relationship.
It's
but
a
it's hard to,
worthwhile investment.
and it's hard to tell that sometimes. And it's, again, difficult to ask people for money unless you have the framing that's like, hey, I think this is going to help you. And if you tell me no, I'm not going to take it personally or like I did a bad job. Let's go back again, values, figure out where we went wrong. Did I communicate something wrong? Are we too high priced? Whatever it may be, right? But a deep understanding that like, thank you for the no, I'll learn something from it. Or if it's a yes, don't do it out of the kindness of your heart. Do it because it's good for you. I talk a lot about this when I give people advice to the go-to-market structure on Farcaster, especially with the OGs or whatever you want to call them. It's like the ability to get people to show up and help you out just because who you are is in some ways a very beautiful thing. It's nice to have those connections with people. It's really great to know you have people that you can rely on to help you out in whatever it is that's your value set that you're interested in, that you're trying to push forward. But don't confuse that, right, with testing yourself and your own limits about whether this is going to be successful or not. Right?
What do you mean?
Like
I think I'm following you, but say more.
So for me, for example, let's take my podcast. If I have 10 people come on that just do it because they're my friend, that's nice. That's good. It doesn't mean I'm a successful podcaster. It means I have 10 good friends. You know what I mean? Are people listening to this? Does anyone else care? How about people who don't know me? I say I want to help out people and be useful in the world. If it's just me and my friends talking, that's a failure on my part.
Yes.
Now, there's nothing wrong with failure. We all go through it. The question is, are you learning from that? Or are you convincing yourself that, no, the audience is wrong? The people that I've set out to help, I've decided now that for my own egotistic purposes, in the wrong set of self-centeredness, right? It's like, no, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to be the one that's right in this situation. But this happens everywhere. This happens like founders doing startups or for yourself as well, maybe at times. I don't want to put it on you specifically, but this idea, again, of values, it's like, if my value is to put helpful like growth and go-to-market content out in the world, well, I should hear that from people that I don't know, especially people who don't like me. If they say, wow, that's good content, that's, wow, what a bar to clear. Versus asking your friends, do you like this? And then they go, yeah, I like this. And then you go, that's not really value aligned, is it? That's just making yourself feel good. So I think about this a lot on my team, right? Like are we out there closing deals that are difficult, right? Are we asking for as much as we possibly can to know whether or not we're delivering as much as we possibly can, right? When someone looks at our brand presence, is it the type of person who's getting excited because they have, are they talking to someone who has a certain number of followers, or are they genuinely excited to work with us because we've properly communicated what we're doing at Opacity and like why it's special, why it's going to help them out, right? So these are like very nuanced things, again, with like your North Star and what that is for each role. And you just have to be hyper clear about what that North Star is, what that value is, because everything else will fall downstream from that automatically, right? But if it's not clear, it doesn't matter how much you measure. It doesn't matter how many analytics you have. It doesn't matter how often you meet. It doesn't matter how many times you tweet. If you don't know what you're trying to do, there's no way to get that OODA loop. There's no way to have like your click-through rates, like understanding where they matter. Because again, this is the problem with like airdrops, for example, right? There's always PMF for giving away money. There is never
unrelated to how people actually feel about the content, though.
Exactly. You're not testing whether or not someone likes your product. You have misaligned yourself, right? If you think your job is to get people to come claim free money because you need a certain amount of wallets on your network to like raise your next round, well, that's fine, but be honest with yourself at minimum that your goal is to raise another round of fundraising. And to get there, you need 500,000 Twitter followers and 1 million wallets who are holding your coin or a certain price up in 6,000%, right? That those things help you do something, but they do obfuscate the other stuff that might actually be your real goal.
Yes.
If your goal is to help people with technology, giving away money is going to hurt your ability to get there.
Yeah.
Because you won't know whether you're helping people out or not. All you'll know is that people want free money.
What's coming to mind for me is self-awareness as you're talking. And
absolutely.
And in my work as a coach, one of the things that I'll do at the jump of an engagement, if somebody's up for it, not everybody's up for this thing. Because again, it's really hard sitting with this level of feedback, but I'll do a 360 review. I don't know if you come across 360 review. I don't know. Well, I imagine, okay, perfect. So 360 review is essentially like wraparound feedback, right? So let's imagine I'm working with you, Dawufi, and I go to the people that you report to, the folks that work alongside you, the folks that report to you, and I would essentially ask some version of what's working with Dawufi, what could be better, and then anything else. Really low fidelity, but it's highly effective. So I then take that, anonymize it without attribution back to any individual, and then I sit with you and I help you process the feedback. And what is so valuable is people begin to understand. Awareness is provoked around the space between how I think my leadership is perceived or experienced and how it is actually perceived and experienced. Right. So if I think I'm a great communicator, doesn't really matter if nobody on my team feels like I'm a great communicator. If I say families first, I don't want a team full of workaholics, and yet I'm going right through the weekend, or I'm constantly canceling family stuff or work stuff, then there's that inconsistency between how I think I show up and how I actually show up. So that's how I would help bring some self-awareness for a client when I'm working with them. But I'm curious because I think what you're sharing right now is applicable to a lot of folks. If we want to get great at technology, if we want to get great at airdrops, whatever it is, how would you advise teams to get better at this thing that we're talking about, creating less daylight between what we're actually doing and the value, the thing that's the most important?
Yeah. I think culture helps a lot. So I think the work that you do is like wildly important. In the same way, you touched on like, where I say I don't want workaholics, but then I'm a workaholic a lot. That it only goes up in terms of my opinion of like importance, but also like where it comes from, right? So there's a certain amount, if you're like a younger person, it's like, you can do what you can do if you're already in a job, right? So I want to have some awareness around what you're capable of. But as I was saying before, when you're looking for a job or, you have control over something specific on your team, a sort of deep understanding of like what is actually trying to be accomplished, right? Like spend the extra time thinking about it. What is the end goal here? And I think this is very closely related to values. It's not quite the same thing, but it does help sort of clarify these things. And I think anyone, no matter what level you're on, it's a worthwhile question that any manager worth their salt will be happy to answer, right? And so much miscommunication happens because someone thinks one thing, someone thinks else, and it's like, whether you're trying to get a raise, like think about your own goals, right? I'm trying to get a raise, or I'm trying to get a promotion, or I'm trying to change jobs, or whatever it may be. Sometimes you have to ask yourself. Sometimes it's worth asking someone else. Like what the trite version is, what does success look like in this role? Right? Like during the interview. But it's not a bad question. I think there's other ways to phrase it as well, where you can say something like, what are the metrics that I'll be judged on, or what would you like to see out of me this week? You know what I mean? Yeah. Keeping those lines of communication open can be very important when you're thinking about sort of team engagement, and you can't get there with the team unless you sort of are willing to do it yourself. Is sort of my final period on this rant, where how could you ever expect a team of people who have no idea what they're supposed to be doing individually to get somewhere that they're supposed to go as a team, right? So I find that in my own leadership roles, I try to keep it as much as a sort of two-way communication street as possible, in terms of like, when I'm hiring, I want someone to be excited about the work they're going to do. I want to hear what they're interested in. I want to know what gets them out of the bed in the morning, because that has to be something that when you put as an input to the team, it's going to drive the whole cart forward. Right. So from an individual role, I think it's important, really important to know what you want to do. And then from a team leadership role, I think it's really important to know what those individuals want to do and what they think success is. And it's very much the job of the leader to make sure that whatever that person wants to do, whatever they want to work on, there is a fit. And it doesn't need to be the same thing as someone else. It actually probably shouldn't be the same thing as someone else, right? Because then you have multiple people pushing down the same door,
Yeah.
versus working together in that self-centered position, that it all does coalesce and connect and create something greater than the sum of its parts.
I love your point there, though. Like, if I'm bad at identifying key metrics myself, if I can't answer the question about success individually, then how the hell am I going to help the team get there?
You won't even know if it's working or not. There's no way to tell, right? It's like one week I did great, the next week I did terrible. There's no correlation.
Who knows? Yeah.
It's just like we're just sitting around. Again, it's like it's the classic like crypto marketing thing where it's like, I say that I want to create, brand awareness among like a certain type of like, maybe developers, right? And then it's like, I'm not checking whether these Twitter followers are developers or not. I'm just watching number go up and getting happy, and then say, how do we do more of that? It's like, well, throw more money at the problem. And it's like, okay, developers turns out don't care about this at all. We've managed to grow a huge number of people who could use a couple extra bucks. And we have not accomplished anything in terms of like the team, the individual, the company. Maybe the individual has accomplished it. Maybe they want to take that on their resume and go somewhere else. It's fine.
But we've just gone in reverse, as you were saying earlier.
Correct. You've completely damaged the brand, and you didn't even realize it because you weren't clear on the direction the team was supposed to be pushing.
That's it. Clarity. Right. So we talk about, as a team, brand awareness. What do we actually mean by that?
Correct.
As a coach, if let's imagine I go to your team and interview everybody and say, give me a one-line definition of brand awareness, success, this team's main goal, whatever it is everybody saying the same thing?
Correct. And I won't call out specific people or specific instances, but we think about these things. I think about these things at Opacity specifically a lot, right? To get tactical, because I think very concrete examples can help drive the point home for people who are thinking about it. But we just got back from Denver. We get on these calls with like these really high quality developers, and to a T, there's some sort of review that says you are known in the industry as like a leader. It's like, perfect. That's what I want to hear. I don't want 10,000 people who don't use Opacity excited about a token. I want to hear from our venture capital partners that they have friends at another VC, and their friends at that other VC are telling their companies to copy us. There isn't a better brand awareness than that.
Yeah.
Right? These are the people who are in back rooms dealing deals that make or break whether or not someone's going to come to you and actually partner with you in the way that I want them to. So it's hard to put guardrails and analytics on that sometimes. But to your point with the binary system, it's like, how many conversations did I have this week where someone mentioned a competitor and mentioned that, we were the superior solution for them that I wanted to talk to?
Yes.
I can answer that easily. I can 1-0 my whole calendar with that. And I'll tell you right now, it's all ones.
Yeah.
It's not all ones. It's a lot of ones. It's enough ones that I'm happy.
Zeros. Yeah.
It's definitely more ones than zeros, and I'm happy with the number of ones.
Man. Dawufi, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
It's a pleasure, always.
Yeah. From my perspective, you said at the jump you wanted it to be helpful. This has been helpful for me. What have we not talked about before we get to takeaways? What have we not talked about that you want to take time to note?
I'd really like for people to hear this. I think I'm just jumping to takeaways. Sorry.
Go for it. Let the spirit move you.
I'd really like people to listen to this and feel like they're walking away with some great ideas on how to bring clarity, optimization, and self-centeredness into their own life in a way that's going to just, bring more joy and success to them and everyone around them. I think if we can get there, I'll be thrilled. I think we did, for whatever it's worth. At the risk of tooting my own horn and and not asking the right questions, I will go ask people. I will 1 and 0 this later to make sure. But in the absence of evidence currently, as we're just recording it, it's not out in the public yet. I'm happy with where we ended up.
Likewise. I want to share my takeaway, if I may. You've challenged me to think about, good coaching. I shared with you before, good coaching is 3 parts. It's working with great individuals to shift awareness and then shift behavior. You have shifted my awareness around this idea of self-centeredness in this conversation, the importance of that. And if we're going to be a successful team, it's got to start with good self-centered people in a positive way. Do these people understand what is most valuable? Are they on the same page about that? And are they willing to do the simple but hard work of the 1s and 0s of figuring out whether or not there's actual alignment there, or is there more space?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the 1s and 0s example, I can't think of anything more self-centered than sitting there and talking about yourself and whether or not you were successful. And
with the stuff that you said was important.
It's just such a fantastic, it's a fantastic lens to view the self-centeredness through, because when you give the example, you go, wow, I bet that's really productive. I bet that's really helpful. And then you look at it from first principles and you go, that's just all about me, isn't it? and I think sometimes it should be, because that's what's going to get you to spend more time with your daughter with your phone away. And I think that's a good thing.
That's a perfect place for us to punctuate this conversation. Dawufi, thank you for your time, my friend. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I'm going to give you the last word.
Thank you for having me on. Absolute pleasure, as always. I've definitely got some more things to think about myself. And I'm really excited to see you continue on your podcast journey. It's been a joy, a pleasure, and I hope you're doing it for yourself. And that'll be my period. That'll be my period on the conversation.
Perfect. Dawufi, my friend, thank you so much. Folks listening, thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning into the Delta Podcast. If you're ready to lead through change, stay with us. Until next time, remember, it's always a great day to be coachable.